Obviously, this was one of those at the last moment things yesterday evening. And so what does a teacher do when it's an unexpected teaching event? And I thought to myself, what do I want to teach today? What do I want to study? That I'm prepared to study, or I can have time to study and prepare. So I thought to myself, let's give a test. That way the audience, y'all have to participate more. So we are going to give somewhat of a test today. It is a question, questions that I'm going to ask. We are going to be reading scriptures. And I do want participation. I want comments and either examples of the things that we're going to talk about, either from personal or that you know about or that you've seen or whatnot, to take care of each of these questions, because I'm kind of basing what we're studying on this particular lesson and it's not something that is different for any of us. I've talked about it before on other lessons on questions. What do we as parents try to do, and as grandparents, when our children or grandchildren go to bed? What do we want them to do before they go to bed? We want them to pray, right? My mom used to say it was confession time, because if I had done something I got away with or thought I had got away with, I couldn't go to sleep because it bothered me before I went to bed, and would have to tell my mom when I was little. Does that apply just for a child? Doesn't each one of us ought to take and examine ourselves constantly, but particularly when the dust settles at the end of the day? Should we look back upon ourselves and see, what have I done today spiritually? How have I lived my life today? How have it's kind of like a test at night when you go to bed. Examine yourself for things that you might need to correct, or things that you left undone that you should do the next time it comes around. Because all of us, myself included, there are things that we need to strive to do better, or that we need to change the way we are, because we are around people every day, and they are taking heed to us, I promise you. More so than ever, because they like to use it against us if we try to teach them something. None of us as children love to have a parent tell us, because I said so. But if we tell somebody and they're doing it, we're doing it, how much influence are we wielding at that time? In Matthew 26, starting in 20, and it said, "Now when even was come, he was sitting at meat with the 12 disciples. And as they were eating, he said, Verily, verily, I say unto you, that one of you shall betray me. And they were exceedingly sorrowful, and began to say unto every one, Is it I, Lord?" Do we betray the Lord in our activities every day? How do we live each day? Are we betraying what He's taught us and what we're trying to teach others by our actions and what we say? As I've told somebody before, I had a discussion with a person one time, that what he was doing, he was actually it got to where he was drinking real heavy. But he said he never did it around anybody, no family, no nothing. It was just him. And I said, "So nobody knew, huh?" He said, "That's right, nobody knew." I said, "What about the person you bought it from?" "Well, they don't know me." I said, "Well, what does it say in Hebrews 4:13? And there is no creature that is not manifest in His sight, but all things are naked and laid open before the eyes of Him with whom we have to do." if we speak bad, if we do bad things, if we don't try to help somebody obey the gospel, if we don't set the proper example, there's always who watching? The Lord's paying attention. He knows what's going on, how we live our lives. So at night, maybe evaluate yourselves, and here's some questions we're going to talk about today. James, turn to Matthew 7, 3 through 5. Randy, if you would, turn to Acts 20 and 35. Anita, turn to Proverbs 3, 5. Sister Hooker, if you would, turn to Romans 8, 28. Carly, if you'll turn to Romans 12, 17. Charles, if you'll go ahead and turn to Matthew 7 and 12. Joyce, if you'll turn to 1 Timothy 2 and 9. Rose, if you'll turn to Proverbs 23 and 7. Jerry, if you'll turn to Ephesians 6 and 4. Connie, you got your hands full, or can you read? Okay, Connie, try to get James 1 and 27. And knowing me, I better just stop right there, because I'll see if I can get through all this. What is our number one problem in teaching the gospel to others when we profess to be a Christian? What happens to the Word of God? What do people tell us about Christians? What are they? Hypocrites. That's probably the number one thing that I've heard from people talking to me, and when I've tried to talk to somebody, well, it's so do as I say, not as I do. That's one of the biggest problems we have on teaching the gospel is Christians living as Christians and not as hypocrites. Because is Christian just a Sunday thing? But how many people in this country feel that way? I'm going to act like a Christian today because it's the Lord's Day. But aren't there 6 more days? Yes, ma'am, Nita. Okay, Nita makes the comment, people feel like they did their duty. They went to church on Sunday, took care of what the Lord required, because that was His day. Amanda? They hate what?
They hate Christians as a whole, and so they're trying to cancel, Christianity. Whether you're at workplace, nobody wants to hear it. If you try to talk, whether it's in the news, nobody wants to announce that.
What Amanda's saying is that everybody's actually against us at this time, trying to find something that you're doing wrong at the workplace, wherever you're at, in the store, that they're looking. And that's true, is it not? If you want to talk to them about something, then what's their next reaction? They're going to look to trip you up. Because if they don't want to hear what you have to say, they're going to look to see, you said this, but you're not doing this. And they're going to look for that because they don't like what you have to say. I'm sorry? And Karen's talking about a very big issue that's been going on in our society and across the country of being cognizant of things of what is really going on and taking a stand for it. I mean, the woke movement has been talked about. But Christians tend to take When something comes up in the country, Christians that Christians think is wrong, they take a stand for it. I'm sorry? Yes. Because of standing up for the truth. Of course, and I guess we'd call that persecution in the long run. People used to lose their lives for it. But how did Jesus handle that? He suffered what he had to suffer to stand for what's right. Anybody else? Okay, James, read that, please, sir. 7, 3, 4, and 5. So yes, we're supposed to correct those that are, to teach others. We need to point out if they're doing something wrong, correct? But we live in a country that we've all become because of technology and button pushing. When we hear something, what's the old saying about slow to speech? You know, are we slow to speech? If we already have an opinion about something and we hear something we disagree with or we see something wrong, we automatically do what? We react. We react very quickly nowadays to everything. Have you ever made a comment to somebody that you thought they were doing wrong and two things could exist? One is you didn't know the whole story, so you didn't know all the information, so then you look kind of out of place and a little stupid because you were wrong in what you had to say. Or when you said something correcting somebody, they come back and said, well, what about you? Have you checked yourself before you correct? We have to be careful of being hypocritical. That's a real problem we have. All right. Did I find more joy yesterday in giving than receiving? Most people do a good job of giving. And I don't mean just of presents or of physical things, but also their time, their help, the shoulder. But sometimes we do have to be a little careful. Well, why should I go visit Mrs. Jones in the hospital? I was in the hospital last year and she never came to see me. Now, what kind of attitude is that? And yet, how often do we catch ourselves, well, they didn't send me a Christmas card last year, so I'm not sending them a Christmas card this year. It's petty sometimes of how we react to people on giving and receiving. Doesn't say you're supposed to receive before you give, does it? It doesn't mean you're supposed to receive after you give. So if you think during the day, what's my attitude? Randy, read that please in Acts.
In all things I have shown you that by working hard in this way, we must help the weak and remember the words of the Lord Jesus, how he himself said, it is more blessed to give than to receive.
Anywhere about that does it say expectation on our end? It's all about what we need to do, so we need to be careful of how we treat others. All right. Here's another. There's a lot of these that I have to work on. Am I putting, your test question number 3, am I putting my trust in the Lord, or am I going beyond the borders of thoughtful concern and engaging in useless worry? I know sometimes we think there's a fine line between concern and useless and worry. My dad used to have a comment for several in my family, my mother and I particularly. You can't do anything about what you can't change. If it's beyond your control, then there's no use in worrying about it. And yes, we worry about a lot of things. And some people worry themselves almost sick sometimes about what's coming up. What does it say, Anita?
Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding.
Okay. The Lord has said He'll be there, right? Now, we've talked about prayer before. Do we always get what we want? No. Maybe not when we want it, how we want it, or we might just get told no. But we have to be careful about worrying about things that you can't do anything about. Yes, ma'am, Carly.
Sister Bolenbacher, I remember her saying that, remember, you're not in charge. And I have to remember that in something. I am not in charge. Whether it's trying to get someone to come or the grandchildren and parents don't want them to, and I have, that's hard. That's hard to accept.
And we live in a country where we all think we're individuals thinking we're in charge. Carly was talking about the issue of she thinks she wants to take care of something, but Sister Bolenbacher had told her about we're not in charge. We do what we can to help those that we can push along and have authority with, but we're not in charge of everybody. What's those saying about a horse? You can lead it to water, but have you ever tried to jump on it and stick his nose under the water to drink? Joyce, what does it say in Romans? I'm sorry, that was Charles. No, that was, I skipped you. I was Sister Hooker. I'm out up in my book. 28. Yes, ma'am.
And we know that all things work together for good to them that love the Lord and to them that are called according to His purpose.
So what's that 5-letter word that just told us? Starts with an F. Faith. We've got, He's going to make it all work. Maybe not because, as Carly said, we're in charge, but because that's His plan for us to do. And we got to not over worry ourselves with what's going on. Okay. Boy, this country would be a whole lot better off if this one was still in the old days. Used to, when people made a deal, and obviously I'm old enough plenty now, I remember this a lot more when I was younger. Somebody made a deal. Do they have to have a 25-page contract between each other? What did they say? They said it and shook hands, maybe. But yes meant yes and no meant no. Their word was their bond. And this question is, when you go to bed at night and you ask yourself questions to examine, is my word as good as my bond? What you said, did it mean, could they trust what you said? Now, I realize when we get away, we can really jump out there in the political scene. We can jump out in this country, in the worldly area, and know we have tremendous problem with that. But we as a Christian need to be careful ourselves with the people we work with our brothers and sisters in Christ. Those that are watching us, whether we're at a recreational event, we're at school, we're at Walmart. What is your word? What does your word mean? What does it say, Carly?
Recompense to no man evil for evil, provide things honest in the sight of all men.
Another word for honest on that would be, I think some versions have honorable. When I go to bed, was I honorable today? Did I conduct myself in an honor position? That people thought that what I said was what I would do and that I was respected for that? You have to look back. What happened when you were eating lunch or supper? Or when you were at school and a problem? Where's our biggest, on all these questions that we're going to ask ourselves, it's easy to do it when there's not any issues going along, isn't it? It's when what? Problems come up. Issues come up that have to be addressed. How did you react? Did you blow a gasket? Slam the phone down? Get upset? At who? Some people call, well, they're just collateral damage. That wasn't who I was mad at. Well, did you do damage by the way you acted, regardless of who you were mad at? We have to be careful of that. What does it say in Romans 12:17? Did you just read that? Okay, let's remember that. Is my word as good as my bond? Have I manifested Christian friendliness? What does that mean to y'all? That question? Have I manifested Christian friendliness? I'm glad he had some other information in the book because I might not have got the same direction he went. Well, let's talk about it from a different aspect. I don't know if they still teach that in the kids nowadays when you're little. What was the golden rule? What? Yeah, I'm fixing to have him read where it actually says that in the Bible. Okay? Yeah, that's what it says. You can read several different things. It'll come in different ways.
Or did they think that you was the grump today?
Do what?
Or did they, whoever you met, did they think you were a grump? You were in one of those moods where, nothing was right.
Nothing was right.
And you expressed it. Everybody knew that's what.
Do you always have to say it, or can you just act like it? You can have an aurora around you that nobody wants to get close to you. We used to tell people, I've told several after, okay, I don't know what side bed you got up on in the morning, but tomorrow would you please push that mattress against the wall and get up on the other side? Because when you come in, the first thing you see is a frown. I've been in the back many a time, employees coming in. I can tell you right away which one's already got issues when they walk in that door. I already know that something's gone wrong this morning. And you hope that they get out of it, but in a little bit you just have to address it if it becomes an issue. What?
Like we were saying there, doing to others as you have them doing to you. Well, if you're coming in with a frown and a chip on your shoulder, everybody's going to pick up on that. And that's not what you really want them to see.
I'm sorry? They're just sour. If they profess to go to church all the time, and that's the way they are, Karen's talking about somebody being sour all the time, which then whose responsibility is it to try to help that person? All of ours if we can. It may not be, you may not have any weight to help that person. You may need to find somebody that they trust, somebody that's close to them, that you can to get to work on that.
Or if you're around a negative person all the time, you need to try to change the subject.
Get them off their particular pet peeve of the moment. And we call the negative people. You got the glass half full and you got the glass half empty. It depends on how you look at things. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But what does this world and how do we react that quick most of the time? How do we phrase it? Do unto others before they do unto you. That's what happens a lot of time. We don't look at how we want to be treated. We're just too busy trying to get even at them. We want to be ugly to them. And so we have to be careful. How do you want to be treated? And the thing about it, when you go to bed at night and ask these questions, how did I treat people today? Would I want to be going to bed the way how I treated people today? What's my grade on that? Because a lot of these are not 85, 95, ABC. A lot of these are just simply pass and fail, are they not? I failed to do that today. And does it matter if you did 25 things good and you did 4 bad, that you say, okay, I've got the heavy percentage, I'm fine? No, you still need to work. And that's what I said, I need to work on all these. Obviously, this is another one. And a lot of times over the years, we point this at females. This goes both ways, folks. The question, when you go to bed at night, do I dress in modest apparel? I mean, you can have a whole lot of clothes on and not be modest. I know that used to we didn't think that, but that's the truth. How you dress yourself has a whole lot to do with things. You can either have not much on, you can have a whole lot on, and you can still be immodest by what is portrayed by your body. And once again, we're not harping just at women on this. Men are the same way. I mean, I'm just going to tell you, men not wearing shirts and short shorts out in public. Of course, I don't know how anybody wants to see them at home either, but I don't like seeing them when I'm out. I mean, you just got to be careful how you dress yourself, how you conduct yourself, your appearance. And I realize that I'm old school. Appearances I have to be real careful not to judge anymore on, because custom and things have changed. But I'm not worrying at the moment what other people are wearing. This question here is, how am I wearing? How am I conducting myself in what I wear? Am I being modest? What does it say in 1 Timothy 2:9? So we're talking about modest apparel, so we always want to jump to the fact of indecency of how they look. Does that scripture carry a little bit more with it? Is it just talking about indecency looks? How about people that wear stuff to call attention to themselves? Me. I want you to see me. I don't know how some of the athletes can even walk with all the gold chains and stuff they have on their arms, their bracelets and stuff. I mean, their rings. I mean,
this Pearson business. There's a guy came in up there the other day, which I had an employee at one time that I sent home to get a lock out of his ear. And there was one showed up there the other day at work. He worked for one of the entities around here, and he had a loser deal with 2 balls on it, one on each end, through his ear. And
that's a safety issue also. Some of them in our line of work that you have to be careful of, those are safety issues that they don't realize could be an issue. But it's all about calling attention to myself. Now, okay, I lived in the 70s. I still have an article at my house that I was given at church and was studied in a class about long hair. I'm just going to tell you, back when we wore our hair, because we were calling attention, it wasn't the fact that the hair was that bad. It's a fact that we did it just to spite. We had big old long hair just to call attention. But we have people that dress up to be flashy. I mean, I think there's some commercial on TV. I don't remember who it is. But it's almost amusing because they're calling attention to themselves with this fine, I mean, they're not indecent, but this fine dress and pearls and just the whole fashion statement. Of course, they're holding a dog that I think is a stuffed dog, because I don't think it's alive. It don't move the whole time she's got in her arms. But it's all about calling attention to me. Do we want to call attention to ourselves? Modesty, that's not... Or we want the people to look at the outside or the inside of us, folks? Now, before I leave this, I'm not saying let's go the opposite way, that you don't care how you look in front of people. We have enough of that right now. You can go to Walmart and watch people walk out and you're saying they don't care how they look. But I'm just saying we need to be modest in how we dress. And just think back, what did I tell people when I went home today, when I go to bed? What did I tell people by the way I dressed? What message did I send them? Because I'm telling you, folks, it's all about how we act, not and how we look, not necessarily what we say. Okay. Unfortunately, most people don't read a paper anymore as far as the hard copy. There's still some of us old folks that I like to have the hard copy in front of me when I'm reading the paper. I just like to read it. Sometimes I can't almost eat breakfast without a hard copy in front of me, because that's the way I've done for many years. I can't get out of that habit. But we do read literature, do we not? We read the news. I mean, there's enough that's been read on this right here. Everybody reads this constantly, even when they ought to be doing something else. Somebody told me the other day, well, I texted you, you didn't respond. I said, well, that's because I was driving, and people don't like me to text and drive. Probably because they see me drive when I'm not texting. But I'm just saying, everybody gets information. The computers, the phones. I guess if you got good enough eyes, you can read it on your watch now. But what are you reading? Is it things you need to be reading? And of course, commercials on TV is a whole other topic. What does it says here, what kind of literature did I read last week? What does it say in Proverbs 23:7? What does it say about evil companions? Corrupt good morals. Does that mean that only affects you if you have people around you that's evil companions? What about what you read? What about people that talk around you? If you stay around what you read and what's talked around you, what's going to happen to you at some point? What was that comment? I'm still an old Trekkie fan. Back there were several good comments on that old show over the years. The confrontation with good and evil. Comment was made, finds that evil normally wins unless good is very careful.
Remember this, garbage in, garbage out. There's some things, like words and what we watch on TV, they sort of stick in your mind sometimes.
Oh, yes. And the same thing with the reading and the stuff you see. Well, that's what we do about when the computer won't work. They usually tell me it's the operator what he's trying to do with it. But my whole thing is what you're reading and seeing has an effect on you. How many people in the past, I would say 8 years of Obama, 4 years of Trump, and 2 years of Biden, they have become so incensed. They either watch Fox News all day long or they watch MSN all day long. But they say, even though their values may be good values, they have become, I've had a couple of employees, they stay so incensed at the political, they just stay bent out of shape all day because of the way this country's going. Well, we do need to change things, but we cannot, what they see all day long, they go to bed at night, they're still all wrapped up all night long over the political scene. We have to be careful.